2 weeks into the 2026 Iran war, the outcome is already clear. There are no winners. The standard American military playbook, a rapid decapitation strike followed by swift regime change, is disintegrating in real time. We are witnessing a total strategic deadlock. The most sophisticated offensive capability on the planet has found itself unable to gain ground against a defense 40 years in the making. Former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger once observed about conflicts like this, "It's a pity both sides can't lose." In this war, his dark wish has actually come true. Both sides are bleeding. But this military gridlock creates a threat much larger than a definitive victory or defeat. It has torn open a massive vacuum in the global supply chain, completely shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, the vital maritime artery where a massive portion of the world's energy flows. We are watching the physical fracturing of a unipolar global system, an entire world order that has relied exclusively on cheap oil and an unchallenged US dollar to function. To understand why the world's most heavily funded military is failing to conquer Iran, you have to look at the architecture of the two forces. The US intelligence and military apparatus relies on centralized, top-down control. Iran operates on the exact opposite principle. Iran spent decades preparing for this exact strike. They survived the initial American bombardment by moving essential military assets, including fast patrol boats and munitions, into veritable underground labyrinths. But their true resilience lies in their command structure. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is organized into 31 independent military commands. They are specifically engineered to make autonomous, localized combat decisions without needing a go-ahead from a central authority. It is a modern parallel to the historical Hindu kingdoms of India, whose highly decentralized structure allowed them to absorb shocks and fend off invading Muslim armies for centuries. You cannot decapitate a distributed network. The physical toll of fighting this network cannibalizing its own THAAD systems, a critical anti-ballistic missile defense network from Allied bases in South Korea just to replace damaged equipment in the Gulf. Overwhelming firepower simply cannot neutralize a distributed system quickly. The US is trapped in a grueling war of attrition it cannot afford to fight. The military stalemate has triggered an immediate economic blast radius. The GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, comprising nations like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, is practically blockaded. Global oil prices are spiking to $120 a barrel, effectively acting as a massive tax draining wealth from reliant economies like Europe and India. Using conflict to engineer massive wealth transfers is an old imperial tactic. Consider the 18th century Tipu syndrome in southern India. The British forces allowed Tipu Sultan, the ruler of Mysore, to do the brutal work of invading and looting the incredibly wealthy temples of Malabar. Once Tipu had amassed the region's riches, the British forces swooped in, defeated him, and claimed the concentrated spoils for themselves. 2 centuries later, a nearly identical transfer of wealth occurred during the 1973 oil shock. Arab states quadrupled the price of oil, causing severe financial distress and long lines at gas stations worldwide. But the US turned this global crisis into a permanent economic advantage. They brokered a 1974 agreement with Saudi Arabia, forcing all global oil sales to be denominated exclusively in US dollars. The petrodollar was born. The true leverage of the American empire lies here. Its power stems not from military force alone, but from its historical capacity to weaponize global energy crises to artificially strengthen its currency. But the 2026 Iran war is running the 1973 playbook in reverse. Instead of cementing the supremacy of the dollar, this concept is actively breaking it. In the past, leaders who attempted to de-dollarize their oil sales faced total destruction. When Saddam Hussein tried to trade Iraqi oil in euros, the US military intervened and removed him from power. When Muammar Gaddafi attempted to create a gold-backed pan-African currency for trading Libyan oil, he met the exact same consequence. But 2026 presents a completely different geopolitical board. Heavily sanctioned, nuclear-armed nations like Russia and China have already built a massive alternative ecosystem, successfully shifting their oil trade to the yuan and bypassing the US banking system entirely. Technologist Balaji Srinivasan argues the petrodollar's collapse ends the American Keynesian model of printing fiat money. The downstream effects, a rapid crash in purchasing power and an exhausted military, could physically break apart the American Union. This chart shows the historical cycle of American domestic stability. We are seeing a severe spike in the political stress index, a red line rocketing into what researchers call the age of discord, precisely as national well-being collapses. The 2026 Iran war is dismantling the post-war unipolar system in real time. The ultimate casualty of this conflict is the American empire itself.